Hello, good evening and welcome to Prime Business. I am Pius Kojubaka. Oil exploration firm Tullow has resumed supplies to the Atwabo gas processing plant in Takrady of the Eastern region. Of the Western region, beg your pardon. Now, Joy Business is learning that Tullow actually resumed supplies to the gas processing plant last night. But sources close to the gas processing plant say pressure is yet fully built up from their end. The development should come as good news following concerns if the shutdown had kept long. It could have affected power supply in the country. This evening, there are projections that the Ghana Cedi could be under some pressure in the coming months. This was after the U.S. reached a trade deal with China to slash import tariffs, a move expected to strengthen the U.S. dollar and undermine recent gains by the Ghanaian Cedi. There's more in this report.
One of the reasons for the Cedi's strong recovery and even appreciation in recent times is the weakening of the US dollar. This is due to the fact that more businesses and countries were moving away from dollar-backed assets due to the current uncertainty. However, due to the deal that US had reached with China, when it comes to freezing the recent tariffs hikes, is accounting for the dollar-strong recovery today. The price of crude oil, which was getting into the $50 range earlier this month, is now trading around $64 a barrel. Gold prices have also started dropping. All these are due to the recent development between US and China as they reach some favorable trade deals. Standard & Poor's, in their latest report on Ghana, for instance, is also warning that the local currency could come under some pressure for the second quarter of this year.
Meanwhile, finance professor at Andrews University, Williams Prepra, has warned that Ghana may face further depreciation of the Cedi if critical structural challenges, high public debt, and ineffective export strategies are not urgently addressed.
In Ghana, we still have our structural challenges. We have not turned our economy around. This high public debt is still hanging. We have not intensified our exports or to diversify our exports. So this limitation is going to play in the second half of the year. Until probably we're able to work on the external pressures, what we need, we may see a reverse where the Cedi will start depreciate again. So these are the major elements that really limit Ghana to have a sustained exchange rate regime where we'll be able to sustain this kind of appreciation. If not, in the second half, if the government is no more disciplined, we may see the Cedi devaluing. We may have to improve or diversify our export and do more exports. I'm hoping that the gold bond strategy is going to bring in a lot of foreign currency to mitigate these pressures that we are expecting in the second half of the year. We cannot bank our hopes on cocoa, maybe because we know the situation in the cocoa industry in Ghana.
Let's talk more about the local currency because the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association Grader says the appreciation of the Cedi against the dollar is impacting positively on the sector and could help Ghana further cement its position as a hub of real estate investment in the sub-region. His comment follows recent data from Statista and Knight Frank's Africa report, which showed that Accra emerged as Africa's third fastest growing real estate market. Speaking to Joy Business, First Vice President of Grader, Stephen Deborah Ablometi, noted that the gains made so far by the Cedi must be sustained.
Well, that's another good to have in our bucket because for real estate in Ghana, as you're already aware, we need to import almost about 40% of our finished materials from abroad. And in doing that, you need to change the Cedi into dollars. So it is a very good time for us with the Cedi appreciating against the dollar. We don't need too many or too much Cedis to be able to make a purchase. So it's actually a very good advantage for us.
The Ghana Mine Workers Union of the Trades Union Congress has called on government to adopt a more liberal approach in the mining sector rather than focusing solely on local content. According to the union, while local content is important, an overemphasis on it could deter potential investors and hinder the growth of the sector. Now, they argue that a balanced approach that takes into account both local content and foreign investment would be more beneficial to the country's economy. Abdul Mumin Bana is the General Secretary of the Mine Workers Union.
As a trade union leader, what I'm interested in is an investment climate or environment where there's a lot more predictability, things are stable, I can guarantee a job, I can guarantee incomes for my members, general conditions of service is not an issue for me and by extension members. But if you have a situation where Ghanaian businesses get into the mining space, they are unable to meet their short-term obligations, i.e. payment of salaries, payment of social security or pensions. I mean, virtually it appears that the conditions of service of these workers have been reversed, relative to when they were with the foreign multinational businesses. As a trade union leader, I certainly will not opt for a local business because why would I see fire and walk into it? I wouldn't do that. And so I expect that even though there can be some kind of an affirmative action towards deepening Ghanaian participation in the space, it has to be watched carefully because if we don't watch it carefully and we proceed in that direction, we might end up getting our fingers bent. Workers' conditions will be reversed. Revenues that come to government by way of corporate income taxes, royalties, payee, is going to dip. And I can assure you that over the period, mining businesses that some way, somehow have found their way into the hands of Ghanaian businesses have seen a sharp decline in terms of not just payee, not just incomes that go to workers, but also even the payment of their obligations owed to GRA, owed to SNIT, and quite a number of regulatory institutions. And it is quite a sorry narrative that I'm not too proud of, and it is the reason why we expect a more liberal environment until such time that government itself pays a lot more attention, is able to streamline the system, get private businesses to set up, comply with corporate governance rules. We are able to make available to private businesses cheap capital. Not until we get to that point, I can assure you that it will be a difficult place to go.
The Tree Crop Development Authority says it is implementing strategic measures to support the government's Feed Ghana program. Chief Executive Officer of the authority, Dr. Andy Osei-Okra, says the move focuses on using locally grown raw materials from tree crops to feed domestic industries and reduce reliance on imports. He spoke to Joy Business at a stakeholder meeting.
The inaugural session of a nationwide outreach organized by the Tree Crop Development Authority was designed to educate stakeholders on the regulatory framework governing Ghana's rapidly growing tree crop sector. The forum was a pivotal step towards strengthening industry compliance, transparency, and sustainable development in the tree crop subsector of the Ghanaian economy. Here is Chief Executive Officer Dr. Andy Osei-Okra.
All is to ensure that we have raw materials to feed the industry locally. And as His Excellency the President John Dramani Mahama commissioned the Feed Ghana project or program, he indicated that we have to feed the Ghana industries with our raw materials. And then from production now, we could see that there's a shortfall almost 3 point something metric tons of shortfall of raw materials. And then we need to catch up and help them to be in business so that we can have more jobs maintained and created for our young folks. So I'm happy what has happened here this morning. And you could see the commitment coming from the producers themselves, from the traders themselves, and also, more importantly, for the government regulatory bodies that can help us to achieve this.
The Tree Crop Development Authority says it is stepping up efforts to support government Feed Ghana initiative by supplying raw materials to local industries.
That's it for Prime Business. Prime Baka.